We'd like to welcome everyone to the breakout groups portion of this evening's meeting. We're going to cover some technical details regarding tonight's Zoom meeting features, the details of how to access the first two breakout rooms, and what will happen when we move into the third and final discussion.
Okay. So if you didn't hear my introduction before, hi, my name is Jess Candela. You see I have tech support behind my name. That's what I'm going to be helping out with today. So before we get started, I wanted to tell you that the first and final portion of our meeting will be recorded. So please feel free to turn your video on or off, whatever is most comfortable for you. You can find your start and stop video button at the bottom left of your screen. We ask that you kindly keep your microphone muted until we start the breakout room portion of the meeting. So some of you might have already heard these instructions if you join the webinar, but if you missed these instructions in the webinar or you're just joining us now, we wanted to repeat them so everyone has the same tech instructions. So thanks so much for your patience. So first, Beatrice, I'll let you do the Spanish interpretation instructions in Spanish. Beatrice, are you able to unmute yourself? Oh, I think she already went into the Spanish interpretation. Okay, so Beatrice is already in the Spanish interpretation, so I'll say them in English and I'll also post them in the chat in both English and Spanish for you. So if you'd like to hear the live Spanish interpretation, please follow along. So first you'll click interpretation. The interpretation icon that you see here can be found at the bottom of your screen. Then you'll click Spanish. Then we recommend that you click mute original audio to hear Beatrice, our interpreter, more clearly. This will mute the audio in English and provide the Spanish interpretation only. Next slide, please. If you are deaf or hard of hearing or would prefer to read closed captions, we have enabled Zoom's live transcript feature. To view the closed captions, first you'll click live transcript at the bottom of your screen. Then you'll click the caret and select show subtitle. Instead, if you would like to hide the closed captions, you'll click live transcript at the bottom of your screen, click the caret, and then select hide subtitle. Next slide, please. We'll have two interactive features for the meeting tonight. First, we will have one poll at the very end. I'll read the question and your answer choice is allowed, and then you'll select your answer on the screen. Make sure you click the button at the bottom of the poll that reads submit poll. Polls are anonymous and results will be shared live. Next is the chat. If you click the chat icon that you see at the bottom of the screen, you can type a message to everyone or just to me. And I see that there's some activity in the chat right now. Cassie, if you can maybe help me out with that. Thank you. If you have technical difficulties and need support, please send me a direct message. You can find me listed as Jess Candela, tech support. You may also use the chat if you'd like to provide input during the breakout room portion of the meeting, but you'd rather not speak aloud. Our note taker will include your written comments in the discussion and the notes. I'll be using the chat for technical support help, as well as sharing links for you to learn more information about the housing element. And finally, I think there's just a few of you, but if you are joining us via calling in on the phone and have the ability to join via the web, we recommend that you do so. The polls and chat feature can only be used via the web. If you have a personal computer, a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone and have a Zoom account, you can enter the meeting ID for this meeting to join via the web. The meeting ID is 846-8477-8252. Again, that's 846-8477-8252. Next slide, please. I'll turn it back over to you, Sherry.
Okay, I'm just briefly going to go over the conduct rules. Those of you who were in the webinar already heard these, but anybody joining us for the first time this evening, very briefly, all input is to be provided in the spirit of helping to form goals and activities that address housing needs in Chico. All communication, whether verbal or in writing, must be polite and respectful of others. Any violations of these rules will be cause for action by the facilitators, including turning off microphones or expulsion from the meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the breakout room instructions. So we'll now move into breakout rooms. Please listen closely to these instructions and follow along on the slides. Everyone will start in the same meeting room, and then we'll move into breakout rooms with facilitators and note takers. Our schedule will be as follows: 15 minutes in the breakout room of your choice, 15 minutes in the second breakout room of your choice, and then staying in the second breakout room. All rooms will discuss affordable housing for 30 minutes. This schedule is due to the overwhelming percentage of folks who chose affordable housing as their topic of interest during registration. So we have 4 breakout rooms this evening. The topics are breakout room 1, fair housing and home ownership, breakout room 2, special needs housing, breakout room 3, housing types and coordination, and breakout room 4, improve housing and energy conservation. You'll be able to join breakout rooms 2 through 4 in just a minute in the breakout rooms area at the bottom of your screen. Breakout room 1 will be located in this meeting room. You will not have to do anything to join breakout room 1. You'll just stay here. Breakout room 1 has live Spanish interpretation as well as closed captions, whereas Zoom doesn't allow the other breakout rooms to have that. So if you want live Spanish interpretation or closed captions, please stay here. Next slide, please. You'll see a notification next to the breakout rooms area when I open the rooms. You'll see a list of breakout rooms and their topics, and you'll be able to select which one you'd like to join. It will look similar to the graphic on this slide. Please be aware about how many people are in each breakout room. We'd like to keep the groups even, and that would be about 15 people per group. If one room is filling up, consider joining a less full breakout room. Don't worry, you'll be able to select another room to join after the first round. For PC and some Mac users, you'll be able to select and join a breakout room by clicking join to the right of the breakout room name. For other Mac users, you may need to hover to the right of the name of a breakout room where it shows the number of people, and then you'll be able to see and click the join button. After our first round of 15 minutes in breakout rooms is complete, your facilitator will cue you to join a new breakout room. You may also choose to stay in the breakout room you are currently in if you would like to continue to discuss that same topic. To join a new breakout room, you'll repeat the same process by clicking breakout rooms at the bottom of your screen and then selecting from the list a new breakout room to join. As a reminder, breakout room 1, which is fair housing and home ownership, you don't need to do anything. You just stay in this room, and that's where live Spanish interpretation and closed captions will appear. So before I open those up, Cassie, can you let me know if I need to do something for the meeting? I saw a suggestion to send out an email to the webinar attendees.
So people were unable to copy and paste the link that you're asking them to copy and paste in the previous meeting. So if you're able to resend out that email link to everyone, that would be excellent so people can get back in. They've been having a lot of issues getting in.
Okay, so once I open up the breakout rooms, I'll go and send that email. So everyone who attended the webinar will get an email with that breakout room notice. So sorry about that. Thanks so much for letting us know. We appreciate it. So let me get those breakout rooms set up and then I'll set out that email. So let me do that. Okay, and Sherry, is there anything else you wanted to cover?
Nope, I think you covered it all.
Okay, so just give me one moment here. And Serena, we can stop recording.
All right, thanks everybody. We're all back together here in the main meeting room. So we're going to do a very brief report out from all of the groups. So I'm going to ask the note takers and the facilitators to jump in. So we'll start out with breakout room 1, which was in this room, fair housing and home ownership. And Mary Jo, would you be able to give some highlights from this group?
Let's think. I don't even know if I've gone through my notes.
It's okay. It's
I
okay.
was typing the whole time. We talked about who is experiencing the high cost of housing. We talked about people that are very low income, those with disabilities, those that are single parents. those that are homeless. There was also a lot of discussion about housing as a human right, and a concern about younger folks who may be from Chico or wanting to move to this area and unable to buy a house because of the cost. We also talked about areas in Chico that have fewer resources and opportunities. And the consensus was that the Chapman area, Park Avenue, and the Barber neighborhood lack infrastructure such as streets, sidewalks, and lighting. Also some areas off of Nord, some of the student housing areas, and then southeast Chico, like Marion Park and south to Skyway. Sherry, I don't know if you just want me to go through to the next question, or what do you think?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and go through to the next one.
And then we talked about if they knew of anyone who has experienced displacement during the campfire, and how has that impacted either their or the person's ability to keep and find housing. Many saw dozens of people displaced. Many became homeless because they may have been living on the edge. Many people experienced overcrowding if they did find housing. Several people couldn't afford housing, or maybe were maxing out how much they could afford so they could at least have a roof over their head. And even students were having issues finding housing because there were a lot of campfire survivors that were actually living in what was student housing. And then the other question was, are there any specific actions that you think the city could undertake to promote fair housing and opportunities? We discussed how the city funds legal services in Northern California, and just an interest in maybe letting the population know that that service is out there. And so doing some more outreach on that. We also talked about what it looks like when there's a fair housing complaint, and kind of talked over the different laws that protect both tenants and landlords. Definitely a lot of comments about the unique situation that Chico's in because of the fires and the current housing situation. Maybe working with the city, working with property owners and tenants and nonprofits to put together programs to address equity in housing. And I think that's as far as we got.
Yep, that is. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Jo. Great summation. All right, I'll move on to breakout room 2, special needs housing. And that was James and Cassie.
Yes, I will summarize that for us. So we identified the groups that we were talking about as unhoused and low income, low income, people who are in need of transitional housing, veterans, people with emotional support, pets of any type or breed, people with serious mental illness and experience or experience physical disabilities as well. So we talked a lot about incentives that the city could provide developers to create housing for people with special needs. We talked about permit fee waivers and maybe making preferences on bid offers that prioritize certain things, ensuring that there's more social services wrapped up into housing to ensure that people can maintain their housing while they're there. We talked about the high subsidies that that people need for special needs units to ensure that they get access to the individualized resources they need within their home. We also talked about some barriers that people face for building housing. So we had a builder in our group who is building ADUs or tiny homes. And he talked about the barriers and costs that add up. And he felt like the city could be helpful by taking away some fees and things like that, and to decrease the costs that come up as he builds these tiny homes. He talked about that model being kind of building it backwards and charging people about $500 a month because that's what they might be able to afford. The zoning was very hard. So talking about what you could do to help people clear any obstacles in zoning or otherwise that people face in trying to build units for these special needs groups. We also talked about the idea of the city considering a conversion of motels to provide support for special needs housing. If the existing structures are there is a good price and it's available for rehab, it's always going to be cheaper than building brand new is what people were saying. But there are costs associated because we need things like kitchenettes and other things to make sure that it's ADA approved and available for somebody to live in it full time. It could be potential issue for NIMBYs, but it could also be an opportunity to invest in a hotel that might be seen as a blight or needs rehab and to reinvest in it and rehab the area. And let's see. And lastly, we were talking about affordable housing, and people wanted to create more income-based property units and to have the city actually make it a priority, that they want to have an actionable checklist that people in the community can follow and make sure that they can transparently see where the city is going with affordable housing and the goals that they set for themselves within this. And we also talked about different things like mobile home parks and different ways to house people that weren't listed above. Lastly, we talked a lot about livable design and making homes and communities more accessible for everyone, and how important it is to keep seniors at home. So whether that's making enough housing so people can move into a different unit that's on the space so they can have several generations living together and swap units when it's needed, and allowing for things like wheelchair accessible halls when you build it up front so you can plan for your long-term living needs. And they also and then it also provides a second income and reinforces social relationships. So I believe that's an overlook of what we had.
Great. Thank you very much. Breakout room 3 was housing types and coordination, intergovernmental coordination, and that was Marie and Bruce.
Hi, Marie, why don't I go first since I got a chunk of the notes, and then I'm just going to summarize on some of the major topics that we covered, and then Marie, you can clean up and with everything else that I missed. But we talked about how important it is to have more regional coordination and cooperation, and that includes service providers, agencies, governments, and non-governmental agencies, trusts, and everything else. There isn't a sharing of information that's needed that would be helpful. It seems to be this, everybody seems to be doing their own thing, and everybody would stand to benefit if we would share and coordinate and cooperate more on a regional basis. We spent a lot of time talking about different types of housing that are needed. We talked about a diverse range of housing which is needed, which includes tiny homes, missing middle housing, dense and intense housing, and even intergenerational living, where you have, by design, you have families living together in multi-generational settings. And we noticed that that product isn't being built. What seems to be being built now is single family residential. And where the need is that that's not being provided. And there's a number of reasons for that. And we think it's kind of market driven or financial, but it is the problem, and the need is there. And if the product was being built, I think it would help or go a long way in addressing some of the needs that have been identified. We also talked about financial incentives and how we need to reduce fees for smaller housing, especially affordable housing. And if there were other things that we could do to create some kind of financial incentives in the order of, in exchange for reductions in taxes, if they committed to a certain level of affordability for the unit or the ADU for a certain period of time, where they would be able to benefit from reduced fees or reduced taxes or something else. So that was one of the other kinds of things. So, and then just kind of on the financial and loan programs for first-time home buyers, all of those kinds of things came up, but the problem seemed to be finding a funding source. And then lastly pointed towards inclusionary housing, the topic of requiring a certain component of affordable housing with market rate development. There's a lot of strong opinions on one end or the other on that. And so we talked around the edges of that, but the topic came up, and people feel there's a broad range of ideas about how people feel about inclusionary housing in general. Those are the main topics that I got. Marie, can you fill in the blanks?
I think you did a really good job of summarizing. The only other thing, and unfortunately, I do not have notes. You have all the notes. So I would just say, kind of reiterate a wide range of types of housing, small units, and just more creativity. But again, I think it's definitely kind of the market.
Yeah,
a lot of that.
So yeah, what came up were tiny homes, high rises, mixed use, more density, intergenerational, mixing middle, triplexes, duplexes, fourplexes, all of those kinds of things were parts of the solution.
All right, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Bruce and Marie. All right, I'm going to go to breakout room 4, which was improve existing housing in neighborhoods and energy conservation. And that was the dynamic team of Jamie and Jamie.
Yes, we're a new law firm now, but so we had a couple questions. One was involving helping homeowners maintain their properties. Luckily, one of the individuals in our group was real familiar with a lot of the weatherization programs available. And he pointed out that a lot of low-income homeowners, as well as renters, are eligible for the program, and that maybe there needs to be more focus on the more middle-income people who might need help with these kind of programs. The other thing he pointed out too is for student housing or someone renting to students, it's unfortunate that since the students are supported by their parents, that the program looks at the parents' incomes and not the students' incomes, so they're not allowed to take advantage of those programs. One of the other things that came up was the climate action plan and how, since it's in the process of being updated, how to kind of integrate that in with the housing element update. There was some comments on density, how to improve density, especially like in the developed areas of Chico. Maybe changing some of the zoning to allow second and third units, changing setbacks to allow a little more flexibility in either expanding homes or, adding additional units. In terms of ADUs, changing the city's plans a little bit to encourage smaller footprint ADUs, but maybe 2 stories that might incorporate a garage underneath and then living space above. So that way the renter has their parking taken care of at the same time. Tying impact fees to the size or the square footage of houses versus kind of a set impact fee that goes across the board. We also address the opportunity areas where the city has started encouraging mixed use development. And there was a hope to expand those or maybe change some of those. Like one of the statements was the Esplanade, kind of the nice part with all the trees, does not have any of that zoning. It's more in the end of the Esplanade where it's not quite as nice, not close to the central city, and there's not as many amenities there. So using that zoning, flexible zoning to develop more walkable type communities and smart growth. You know, reduction of parking requirements, hopefully to help encourage more people moving downtown as well. Getting away from the large buses to a smaller shuttle type system with a more flexible schedule. And that was pretty much it. One of the other things they thought too is any programs kind of looking at maintenance of rental housing would be focused more on the mom and pop type developers or owners who probably need the help versus the larger developers that you know, have the resources to do the maintenance themselves. And that was kind of it for our group. And do you want me to go into the affordable housing discussion? Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
So for our group, then we kind of rolled into some of the same comments, was reducing single family zoning and encouraging more, I guess, more robust developments. Core neighborhoods with smaller units seem to be more efficient and more affordable for people. Allow current single family owners to build and expand triplex and duplexes, and allow division of single family homes into multiple units. There's a discussion about land trusts or other types of mechanisms to help encourage affordable housing for sale and for rent. Maybe eliminating impact fees altogether and trying to supplement those with a sales tax or something like that. Undo historical downzoning. So in the past, I guess some neighborhoods were downzoned. So kind of encourage rezoning, upzoning in those neighborhoods to get there. You know, we talked about builders building bigger houses. So the low density zoning encourages bigger houses so they can sell them for more. Ownership and landlord costs are prohibitive for smaller, lower income homeowners. Eliminating affordability covenants or creating some sort of a program where expiring projects in the future would have to allow the units to be preserved before they could go to a market rate. And then we got into inclusionary. There's a lot of support, but they feel like there's no teeth in terms of anyone supporting, actually implementing the program. The developers say they can't make enough of a profit and there's a lack of incentives to do it. And also to stop in prioritizing high-end building. And then in terms of how might motels or other types of houses, that kind of building be used, SROs could be feasible, but they might be difficult to develop because of the per unit costs and the impact fees. So that was kind of it for our group.
Hey,
Oh, Bruce, you're muted.
You're muted, Bruce.
Unmute yourself.
Sure, I just wanted to mention that Jamie brought up the concept of a 2-story ADU with parking below and the residents above. We have one of those in design that will be free to the plans will be free to Chico residents. So we got that and we're working on it. and in a few months, it should be available. A pre-approved ADU
Great.
plan.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for those report outs. That was really great work. Lots of really rich conversation, obviously, happening. Hold on with us for just a few more minutes. I understand we're at 7:30 and we're due to be done. We've got just a couple more items that we wanted to cover with everyone, including getting your input about this meeting. So I wanted to let you know about basically what's going to be coming up now with the rest of the development of this housing element update. So we will have a second community survey. So this is the online survey. Many of you probably participated in the first one. We did end up pushing the date back for the second one because we wanted to have this community meeting first and get some input before we moved on to the survey, because we wanted to understand your thoughts and ideas to help inform the survey. So that will be posted online from August 23rd through September 17th. We encourage everyone that participated this evening to also please participate in the survey. We're going to cover the same topics. We'll probably have even more questions. If you're on the email list, you'll receive a notification when it is posted. If you're not, please go to the website and sign up and check the website regularly. The second thing was I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the website and just remind you, we have a website that's devoted exclusively to this housing element update. It is www.chicohousingelement.com. All of the materials from this evening's meeting will be posted on that website, as just said, by the end of August. We'd also like you to go on right now. If you haven't done so, check out the resources tab. We have a ton of information about housing elements, about affordable housing, topics of interest. We have a definition sheet about the terms that are used in the housing element. A lot of people ask questions tonight, for example, about when you say affordable housing, what does that really mean? And we've got that defined there. So please go to the website, check out the resources tab. Looking ahead to the timeline, after the survey is closed in September, then what happens is we start working on the draft document. We'll be working on that basically through the end of 2021. We'll have an initial review that is done by the city staff and the State Department of Housing and Community Development that happens in December and January. And then we'll start having a draft coming out for public review. That draft will be reviewed at a Planning Commission public hearing February 24th and City Council public hearing on March the 22nd. And then after that, it'll be published and open for a 30-day public review and comment period that will run from late March into April. And then that will conclude with the City Council consideration and adoption of the final document on April the 29th. All of those dates and all of this information is on the website. Just click on the timeline tab and you'll find the schedule for the rest of the housing element, okay? So now we're going to very briefly go in and do a poll that we'd like to get your feedback about. Let me find my slide here. We'd like to get your feedback about the meeting this evening. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Jess.
Great, Sherry. If you click from current slide there at the top left for me.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oops.
from current slide, or you can just skip through. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I'll just go through. There we
No
go.
worries. Okay, so our question is, did you find this community meeting beneficial? Please select all that apply. And I'm going to read the answer choices first and then launch the poll. These answer choices are too long for English and Spanish due to Zoom's character limit. So that's why I'm going to read them first, and then you'll select A, B, C, and or D on your screen. You can select as many as you'd like. So did you find the community meeting beneficial? Please select all that apply. A, yes, I feel like my voice was heard and I was able to provide input into the housing elements development. B, yes, I learned new information and or gained a greater degree of understanding about housing issues. C, yes, I was able to interact with other community members and learn about their ideas and perspectives. Or D, no, this was not beneficial to me. So I've launched the poll now. Again, you can select all that apply. And our question is, did you find this community meeting beneficial? And I see that about half of us have responded. So I'm just going to read the answer choices aloud if the poll is blocking your view of them. So A is yes, I feel like my voice was heard and I was able to provide input into the housing elements development. B is yes, I learned new information and or gained a greater degree of understanding about the housing issues. C, yes, I was able to interact with other community members and learn about their ideas and perspectives. Or D, no, this was not beneficial to me.
I was answering it and then it disappeared. I didn't get to finish answering.
I see that. Thank you so much. Let me. Okay. So I'm relaunching it, and anyone who's a co-host, my facilitators and note takers, just make sure you don't click end poll. So you'll see those answer choices again. I do apologize if you've already selected them. Just please enter your answer choice again. Thanks so much for letting me know about that. So again, you have A, B, C, or D, or you can choose any combination of those. Okay, I see that about 3/4 of us have responded, so I'll leave it open. Okay, if you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and select your answer choices on the screen and then make sure you hit the bottom that said submit poll. Okay. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So 53% of you chose A, which is yes, I feel like my voice was heard and I was able to provide input into the housing elements development. 67% said yes, I learned new information and or gained a greater degree of understanding about housing issues. C, yes, I was able to interact with other community members and learn about their ideas and perspectives. That got 90%. And D, no, this was not beneficial to me. That was 3%. And those percentages add up to more than 100 because you can select more than one answer. So thanks so much for sharing your input. We really appreciate it.
All right, well, that's everything that we have for this evening. Thank you for hanging on for 8 minutes past our scheduled in time. We really do appreciate you being here and participating so actively. Please stay connected with the Housing Element website. If you're not on the email list, get signed up, and we'll look forward to hearing from you at a future meeting when we actually have a draft Housing Element ready for you to look at.
Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you, and
Thanks,
good night.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Good job.